Hey folks, in today's video I'm going to talk about what I think is going to come to Crusader Kings 3 in the Chapter 4 content for the game. So what is going to come in 2025. On the screen I have the floor plan to the future. This was a dev post from 2022, so about 2 years ago, and this was them talking about what they thought would come to the game in the next couple of years and kind of like the status on those things. Now, I do have a few things to say about this. One, we have had some of the things on here. So we've had the clan rework, we've had Persia, we've had some Caucasus content, we've had some Imperial mechanics, if you want to think as the Byzantine Empire as that. But outside of that, we've not really had that much on here that has actually come into the game since this was announced. Some things like expanding the map, as you can see, there's no entrance to that part, so that's never happening, at least for now. The one thing I will say about this is that, as I said, this was from a couple of years ago, and I think the kind of progress of the game and the way the game is going has actually changed. You'll notice at the picture that the mechanical side of the game is like the white rooms, and the kind of blue tinged rooms are the flavor side of the game. And as we know, last year they got rid of the flavor packs. I wasn't that sold on that happening because I love flavor being added to the game. But as we've seen in Chapter 3, the Byzantine Empire part of the Roads to Power would have been a standalone flavor pack previously. So it looks like at least this year, they've pretty much like attached the flavor into other DLC. Now, I think personally that is going to continue for the rest of the game, or at least for the next couple of years. And really just down to one reason: money. The problem I think Paradox encountered is that the flavor packs, although they do make sense in a way, the problem is that if you don't play in those areas, there's not really a drive to buy that content. If you don't play in Persia, if you don't play in Iberia, why would you buy that DLC? Yes, if you're a full Crusader Kings player like myself, like many of you are, you're probably going to buy all the DLC. But if you're just a casual player, just the general player base, you're probably looking at it and think, well, I don't play in Persia, why would I buy this? And I wonder if Paradox saw that in the first couple of years of the game, and they've moved away from that. So if you're a Byzantine player, yep, you probably bought Roads to Power for the Byzantine content. But if you're not a Byzantine player, well, you probably bought it for the unlanded gameplay or something like that. That content was sellable to like 2 different areas of the game rather than it just being the one flavor area of the map. And like I say, I think that will continue. And I think we'll see pretty much every DLC having like a core functionality of the game, plus like a flavor pack almost attached to it, where you get the premium content, the stuff you get from paying for the game, like the Byzantine content, things like that, where you're going to get the most out of it if you buy it. But then there's also not that reason not to buy it if you don't want that content. So hopefully that makes sense. I think we will see the game continue down that path in the future of flavor being part of the main expansions. The other change that we really saw is obviously because flavor packs went away, we moved to a main expansion, core expansion, and event pack DLC. I think they will keep that going as well. I think the core expansion worked well. You can disagree as much as we like about how good Legends of the Dead is, but it did bring 2 core features to the game, and I think they will continue that in next year's content and the content in the future. So I just wanted to get that out of the way because I think some people bring this dev post up as everything in here is definitely coming, and it's definitely going to come in the next couple of years. Now, funnily enough, everything I'm going to choose is actually on this list, so you know, you could probably ignore what I just said for the most part, but I don't think the game's going to continue down this path. I think things from here are coming, but I think the flavor side of it especially isn't going to work how it looks like on this map. I kind of hope they give us an updated version of this maybe with a new layout and what they're thinking for the next couple of years. I think that would help really see what's coming and where like the head of the developers are, where the game's going to go in the next couple of years. But with all that being said, let's get on to what I want to come next year. Now, I will say immediately, what I want to come next year, I don't think will happen. And that is for one reason you will discover shortly. So the main expansions, this would be the Roads to Power level expansion. I want to come next year is what I call War and Priests. It's not War and Peace, War and Priests. Yes, I tried to copy the Paradox naming method, but it probably didn't work that well. And part of this would be a religious rework and a warfare rework. This would get 2 of the major areas of the game that people still have a complaint about. Definitely see people asking for updates in both of these areas. So we'll cover warfare first because I actually think, like, bullet point wise, it's actually the smallest part of this expansion, and that is really just improving warfare, bringing different ways to get alliances. They've said that many times that they wish there was more ways to get alliances, not necessarily always having to be through weddings or through like the one perk you get in diplomacy that allows you to do it. They want that to be a little bit more of a dynamic system and not always the same. The second part of this would be an actual warfare balancing and change. Now, I will say a lot of people complain about the warfare. I think at its base, it works quite well how it is. I think there's just a lot of little things that make it feel not that interesting to play. A lot of it is down to AI. We definitely need the AI improved, so it actually does battles it should. Crusades will be better, but let's get onto that in a minute. But I think overall, the actual how warfare is set up with the armies and things, I think actually works quite well. It would be nice to get more units, more special units in different areas. It would be nice to have some kind of balancing around it. Now, the one thing they did say in this dev post is that warfare is not and will never be the primary focus of Crusader Kings 3, and I think some people do forget that. This isn't a map painter. As a famous YouTuber once said, it is a role-playing game disguised as a map painting game. Like, you can map paint in this game, but it's not EU4, it's not Imperial Rome or something like that. It isn't primarily about taking over land. It is primarily around your dynasty, your house, your character, and what adventures and dynasty building you can do. So that is one thing to always keep in mind. Warfare could definitely work better in this game, but I don't think it's ever going to have a massive leap forwards in how it actually works. We're not going to get certain setups of armies and really trying to micromanage how fights go. I think it is going to stay roughly how it is now. But I think they could bring in some extra things. Maybe have knights be a little bit more interesting. They're not just stat sticks as they are now for the most part. They have traits, but I would imagine 75% of your battles, you probably don't even look at what traits your characters have. You just throw them in because you have more numbers. You think you have the right men-at-arms against the other ones and you think you'll win. I think they could change that a little bit. Maybe if you could have sub-commanders in different areas, kind of like how it went in CK2. I would imagine a lot of people who played CK2 didn't even realize you could actually have different characters as your three-pronged attack commanders. So you could have your army commander, and then you could have your left, center, and right wing actually be different commanders as well. I wonder if they brought something like that back and kind of reworked it a little bit, so you had a little bit more interest in who was in your armies, who your knights were. You could even redo the accolade system because, everyone hates that system, and you could maybe bring that into that a little bit more, maybe have that more of a commander experience system, and then they would build up depending on where they fought and things like that. That would be pretty interesting, especially the traits. If you had an army that always fought in forests, maybe that would be a stronger factor in the kind of traits they picked up and things like that. I think the warfare side will get an improvement. A lot of it is AI. I don't think the actual structure side of the game needs to change that much. Again, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'll probably get some pushback on that, but I think for what it's supposed to be or what the developers want the game to be, it does fit quite well. And then, as I said, the second half of this expansion would be a religion rework. Now, this would be primarily focused on Christianity. There's plenty of other faiths in the game, but as we know, a lot of players play in Europe. A lot of players play for the Crusades, England, France, all these kind of areas that would get impacted. And there's so much they could do about this. The first thing would be the Crusade rework. That's just obvious. They just need such an improvement in the game. They're so random as to whether it's going to be successful. Whenever I do one, it's pretty much toss a coin, see who wins. Even if the Pope has 3 times the numbers as the defender, you're always at the back of your mind thinking, he's probably going to lose this anyway because he doesn't know how to do war. So I think that whole system does need improving. I'm not sure how they could do it. I almost wonder if they could bring in a staging post system, because the problem is that when a crusade is called, all the armies have to come from different areas of the map, and then they try coalesce in one place, but then it looks like the AI just gets confused and tries moving in circles almost to combine the armies together, but it isn't really controlling all of them at once. It's a little bit weird how it plays out. You all know what I mean. I wonder if they could do a staging post thing. So if there's a crusade for, say, Jerusalem, you could have Crete or Malta or something, and that could be where everyone goes to first, and then they go into the actual crusade afterwards as a unified army, or 2 armies or something like that. You could even use where holy orders are located on the map as those waypoints, so they'd always go to those points. It would be a little bit more dynamic then, as the AI and players can set up holy orders. It would give you an additional benefit to those as well in a way. You could maybe charge the Pope or something. I don't know how it would work, but you could have something where they're in your area, and then if a crusade is called, they would kind of come to your staging area, combine together, and then go into the war. I think that would just work so much better than it does now, and make them a little bit more predictable on the outcome maybe, or at least have it so they're not just drip feeding in and just getting wiped by the defending army, because they don't have to travel that far. They're already in the same place, so they just combine their armies up and then just stack white people as they come in. Whereas under this system, you would get 3 armies coming in, and then it'd be a little bit more fair. I think that would be a good way to redo the Crusades. I also think, now I know people don't like the struggle system that much, but I almost feel like every couple of Crusades should be like a mini struggle system so they last a little bit longer. You know, historically, the Crusades didn't end in like 3 months after 3 battles were fought and the Crusade just ended. A lot of them lasted a lot longer than that, and you could have like a mini struggle system where it was declared on, a struggle would appear, and then obviously the fights would be important. But maybe if like one side captured an area and then built up like a fortress in it or something, that would push them towards winning that fight. And maybe it wouldn't even have to be like an all or nothing. You could declare it for Jerusalem, but then they end up just getting like 3 counties out of it with some forts. And then they're kind of like in there defending for a couple of years until they get support. All those kind of things. I think the Crusades could just be a little bit more interesting as well. Not just like a crazy big war that happens every so often. And it's just really potluck as to what happens. Let me know what you think, but I think that would be a good way for the Crusades to work. On top of that, there's so much other stuff they could bring in this. This is why I thought it would be a good main expansion, because you could bring the College of Cardinals. If you played Crusader Kings 2, I think most people like that system, where you supported bishops from your realm to try becoming a cardinal, and then you could get him as the Pope and all these kind of things. That kind of like mini game coming back would be a cool bit of flavor. As part of this, yes, the HRE rework would be part of this, with a proper layout on how the HRE worked. You could have, you know, the battle between the Pope and the Emperor as to who is like the big person in the world, and really what happened with a lot of those kind of things as well historically. And obviously link into that would be coronations. I really loved when they brought coronations into CK2, and I think bringing them into CK3 just makes sense. We've got the travel system now, going to the Pope and saying, you know, I'm a king, crown me, or even the Emperor, especially for the HRE, going to him and saying, like, I'm an emperor. I know you're like the emperor as the Pope, but I'm powerful enough to say, no, I'm on your level or just below it now. So you should kind of ratify that I am an emperor. I think bringing that in would bring a lot of cool stuff as well to the game. And then there's a bunch of other like little things, especially for some unlanded gameplay that went down so well this year. I think nearly everything we get next year will have some kind of unlanded gameplay as part of it. We could have it where like high piety players could either give up their throne or just work their way up as an unlanded character and then become an actual missionary going places. I know you can kind of do that already with one of the decisions you can do, and you can try converting counties or something, but having an actual like missionary role that you can switch into, and then the rest of your life is just trying to convert people in the world, I think would be fun to do, and kind of playing that out on the map as well. The last thing, and yes, it's here, playable theocracies. Now, I'm not sure we'll get this. I think it would be awesome if we did get it, and it would make sense as part of a religion rework, but I'm not sure if we'll get that because we did get a government rework this year. We'd get theocracies next year, and then I also think, to give you a little bit of a spoiler later on, merchant republics will come as well, which will obviously be playable. So I'm not sure if we get playable theocracies and playable merchants at the same time, but it would obviously be fantastic if we did. Playing a theocracy, I don't think it's a crazy amount of work to bring it into the game, especially now we have like the base things of like admin government, those kind of things. I think that probably helps them build on that for theocracy governments. But anyway, that is kind of like the last bit of the religion side. I'm sure there's a bunch of other stuff that could come as part of this, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be purely Catholic based. You could have it as like a wider religion one, but I think just due to the amount of content that would come as part of it, it would be focused on Catholicism especially. Bring a bunch of that content into the game, and then they could do an expansion next year or the year after around the other religions around the map. But that would be my idea for the main expansion. The next part is the core expansion. So this is a game-wide mechanical change to the game with some DLC flavor. We did see that this year. So the main one is like Roads to Power. It's got the unlanded gameplay. It's got the Byzantine Empire. I think what I just talked about kind of fits that as well. The core expansion. Now, you're not going to be surprised what I'm going to say because I just spoiled it a little bit. I think we're going to get merchant republics and trade. Well, I don't think. I would be amazed beyond belief if we didn't get this next year as part of some expansion. It would be shocking to me if we didn't. This would also bring us trade routes. Now, I did a video about a year ago on how I thought they could use the tours and tournaments travel system for trade routes. You could use it to basically draw trade routes on the map and then invest in like guard towers or whatever, like some different mechanics on there as well. I do think we'll get some version of that for trade routes. I don't think they're just going to be like static things on the map, especially for the amount of time that you have to play through in the game. I think it will be something we have some kind of actual control over. Now, as part of this, I don't think we're going to get like goods across the map. I know a lot of people think that's what we will get. something like EU4 or Imperator Rome, where every county has a good and then you can trade it between people, things like that, like wood, stone, gold. I personally don't think that's going to come to Crusader Kings. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. It would be pretty boring, like it was in Imperator Rome, where you had to trade certain things. You got different bonuses depending on which ones you traded, but ultimately you just press buttons and got bonuses, and it was kind of boring. Now, what I think we might get is special resources in certain areas of the map. So we've already got mines, so you could have like gold, lead, you could have maybe like specialized timber, you could have gems, textiles, you could even have off-map things from, say, like China or somewhere, or Japan, that would come in as like special goods from off the map through the Silk Road, which would be part of this DLC, and you could then bring those goods across the map like the Silk Road did historically. And it would also help or hinder, depending on how you want to look at it, how disease would travel across the map as well, bringing that even better than it currently is in-game. I think that would make a cool basis for Merchant Republics. And then on top of that, yes, you've got boats. Now, personally, I know, again, this is going to go against some of you, I don't want like actual ships in the game, not game-wide anyway. I agree with them when they came into CK3 and they said, your transport ships and things, you basically just stick them in a port, use them to transport your army, and then stick them in a port, and you never use them. I don't really want that system to come back. Now, I think if they brought it in as part of Merchant Republics, it would make sense for doing trade. You could even have some inter-Merchant Republic combat using ships. That would, again, make a little bit more sense. But I don't want them across the entire map being used for transport or battles. I know there was naval combat in this time period, but it really wasn't the focus of it, say, in like an EU4, EU5 timeframe, where it really did become a major component of expansion and country building and all those kind of things. In this time period, it really wasn't used like that as much, and I don't really want it to come into the game in that way. I'd rather it was used as part of trade, or like I say, even between Merchant Republics. That would kind of make a little bit more sense. And then when you did cross a sea or something like that, whereas now you're giving money to, you know, Magic Man, here's 75 gold, I've got a fleet to transport to this other area, you could have that as part of a Merchant Republic system. Maybe you went to a Merchant Republic and it was just a button press or something, but you got like a fleet from Genoa, a fleet from Pisa or somewhere, and they would come and take your army. So it'd work the same way, but it'd be a little bit more flavoursome as to how it worked, rather than having to build ships to cross a sea and then you just disband them after you've done so. I never really liked that system. I don't want it to come back. But anyway, we're getting a bit distracted from what I was talking about. Obviously, as part of this, I think the paid DLC would be the different Merchant Republic. So like Venice, Pisa, Amalfi, and then later in the game, you could have the Hanseatic League and really having them build up in the north of Germany and that kind of area of the map as well. So it wouldn't primarily be Italy. This is what I was talking about earlier, where I think this is what I would want to come to the game, but I don't think it is what will come to the game as a combo with the other expansion, because the first expansion is very Italy focused due to the religion side of it, and Merchant Republics, although there are Merchant Republics elsewhere on the map, it is very historically Italy and those kind of areas of the map as well. So I don't think we'd get two expansions in the same area of the game. We could do, and I think it would be good for the game if we did, because I think knocking out religion improvements and Merchant Republic would be awesome, and having them playable is just a fantastic kind of base to the game. Even if you have to buy the DLC, I think you know what I mean. Like the actual base kind of like features of the game is going to be so much better if you have those, and then you can build on those later on. But we'll see what they decide. And that is really the core expansion anyway, the Merchant Republics and Trade, because that is game-wide. It is a mechanical change to the game, which is what the core expansions generally are about. You could add something else into this. You could even have like the warfare part as this, or you could have a lot of flavor content around this as well. Again, it's not just Italy. There are different areas of the world that did a lot of trade. So you could have content around the map based on this as well. And that is really my short idea for the two expansions. For the event pack, I'm going to be honest, this could be literally anything. As we saw this year, that one was based on content from last year. This year, I think we're actually going to get one of the options that were voted on. Was it like 2 years ago? And this was one of the ones that lost in the vote, and that is Villains and Vagabonds. This was leverage your fearsome reputation and learn what it is to be truly dreaded, whilst also considering contrasting themes of fairness and honor. Now, this would be fantastic now because we've got unlanded gameplay where you can be a criminal. Think of all the events they could add for like evil rulers, high dread rulers, but then also criminal unlanded characters. That would be really cool. It would synergize with content for the last couple of years as well. So for Paradox, more people are probably going to buy it, which is ultimately what they're interested in. And then you could bring in a bunch of things, like I said, like especially the contrasting themes of fairness and honor. You could bring like Lady in the Lake events, really honorable knight events, or really honorable kings. These areas of the game that would just add a bit of flavor, and depending on how you played out, events that you wouldn't see all the time. And again, it would link into unlanded and landed at the same time. So criminal landless characters, evil rulers, honorable rulers, all these areas. But as I said, the event pack is kind of like a random guess as to what it's going to be. It could be about anything in the game. But I think this one would make sense. They also had one that was seduction focused. We could get that, but I think that will probably wait maybe for a year when we have something like, I don't know, like France or something that historically was seen as like a romantic area of the game. I don't know, but I think Villains and Vagabonds fits a lot better for the content that we've had recently. And with that, that is my idea for the next year of content. Let me know what you think. As I said, this is what I would like to come. I'm not sure it is what we will get for the reasons I said, with it all being very Italy focused. We'll probably get something, and to be honest, I kind of hope we do get like a step rework. We could have that as part of one of the major expansions. We could have the steppes, nomads, a bunch of content for that area of the map. We could also have like an England versus France 100 Years War DLC that would be where the warfare rework got done, but then a bunch of flavor content around Britain, France, different areas of the map, but mainly focused on the wars that they had, the 100 Years War, as I said, and other things as well. And then the other one that we could in theory get as well is something like a Slavic, Eastern Europe, unreformed faith update as well. That would cover a bunch of the map. Yes, still kind of Europe focused, but an area of the map where there's not really that much kind of special flavor in. There's a few cool decisions you can do. There's some interesting kind of areas to play, but having a bunch of new content there as well, I think would be good. And as I said, that does actually pretty much cover off everything that is in the floor plan to the future. But I do think it would be cool to get content in all those different areas. And that isn't even talking about Africa, India. They're areas that I really do hope get content, because if you haven't played in India, it's really fun. There's some cool achievements there, like the 7 cities. It's really fun to play in. There's some really high development areas. It's just kind of interesting with all the different cultures and religions. And then obviously in Africa, there's a bunch of different things going on there, and there isn't really any flavor content for that area of the map. And there's so many things they could do there in the future. So I kind of hope one of those comes in instead. But I do think we're probably going to get more of these like structural, mechanical gameplay areas that a lot of people have been asking for. And again, kind of get them in the game now, and then you can have the next couple of years as crazy content. And then in 2026, 2027, maybe we'll even start getting some of those secret societies, secret religions, bring some of that kind of more out there content into the game as well, which they always said they weren't going to do at the beginning. But I think after like 5 or 6 years of content, I wouldn't mind some of the more weird stuff coming back into the game. But anyway, guys, that is where I'm going to leave it for today. A bit of a ramble, unscripted video as always from me. Let me know what you think in the comments. What content do you want to see, and what content do you think we're going to get? We're not all going to agree, so please do keep it civil. Let me know what you think though, and hopefully next year we can have another fantastic year for content. Again, not everyone agrees that Chapter 3 was great, but I think it was a lot of additions to the game, the best like amount of content we've got. So hopefully we see that come back in Chapter 4, and we have another fantastic year. Yes, you console players, you're getting the Chapter 2 content next year, but you'll know in 2 years you've got cool stuff to look forward to as well. But with that, we'll leave it there for today. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've had a great year this year on the channel. I've really enjoyed everyone coming in, talking about the game, coming into the live streams, having some fun in there. So 2025, there's going to be plenty more Crusader Kings and some EU5 stuff coming as well. But I'll leave it there, and I'll see you in the next one.